Hello and welcome to Startline, brought to you by the Manx Motorcycle Club. I'm Beth Espey and this podcast is about everything road racing, both on the Isle of Man and further afield. From the races and the teams to the organisers and officials, it is all here on Startline. Welcome to the Startline podcast and thank you so much for listening. Our guest today is utterly fascinating. I loved this chat. So Stephen Walsh is a racer. He's raced over here on the Isle of Man, but he's also got a fascinating day job. He's a psychologist and it gave us the opportunity to talk about the mindset of a motorbike racer. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, here's a little bit more about Stephen himself.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen Walsh. I live in Kerry. I work in Manchester and I kind of commute between the two. My day job, I'm a psychologist. The main thing that I'm interested in is brain injury rehabilitation. But from that, I kind of spread out into some performance stuff. Because funny enough, the processes, there's some similar processes, and it's the processes that I'm interested in. So that's what I do work-wise. Bike-wise, I'm a club racer. I race the classics, and I like the roads especially, but I like a bit of everything. So, yeah, that's me.
And you have been over and raced on the Isle of Man before, Stephen. I think it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? And I think it's fair to say it was a little bit of a journey for you.
Yeah, I've had my ups and downs with the Isle of Man. I've been 3 times. First year I went, I blew up the engine, and that kind of paid to things because the bike wasn't right after it. And I got up the start line, but I couldn't go, so it was very disappointing. Went back the next year, fell off in Parliament Square, just a nice quiet place where nobody was looking. And then I went back last year and I finally got around, so I was delighted. I had 2 bikes last year, I had the 350 and the 500. But I really enjoyed it. It's great. Been to pre-TT a couple of times too. And I really, really like the pre-TT. And
are you not coming back this year though?
Not this year, no, because I need to get the bank account back together a little bit. And I'm doing the British Historic rounds this year, and there's more Irish road races this year than there was last year. And also, if I'm doing the Manx, it's hard to do Armoy Mid-Antrim because they're too close. And I really want to do Armoy Mid-Antrim again, so I'm going to go back and do those this year.
It's great, isn't it, to see the sort of resurgence of road racing over there, because it was a tough few years.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Skerry's Kells is our next outing here. We just did Cookstown last weekend. We'll have Kells and then Tandragee the week after. So yeah, our calendar for the summer is looking really full again, and it's a great complaint.
And how does it work then for you in the terms of you living over there, but then working over in Manchester?
Yeah, so I fly out. We're lucky we have an airport here beside us. So I go either Sunday night, Monday morning, and then home Friday night. And then, lucky enough, I have pretty good holidays. So I get a lot of work done during the winter when there's no bikes. And then summertime, obviously, I'm backward and forward to work. But yeah, the job fits in beautifully with the bike, so it's great.
You're listening to Startline, brought to you by the Manx Motorcycle Club. So we're going to go back to that chat with Stephen Walsh in just a moment. But first of all, because we started talking about the psychology of motorcycle racing, it made me wonder if the people that we've spoken to on this podcast before know why they do what they do. What is it that makes them want to race the roads? We're going to hear now from Aaron Hands, Ashley Robson and first Blake Kelly.
It's hard to nail down one reason for why road racing tickles the itch. It's probably a few things, and it's all comes together with road racing. I've always liked working in a group, but prefer doing things on my own. And when that visor goes down, there's only my performance that's going to make a difference. And there's no interpretation to it. I'm a very black and white person. Transponders don't lie. The race results don't lie. The performance and where it's at is all down to me. And there's pretty much always that option to try and develop that and move to the next thing, go for the next goal and keep building on it. Always been into speed, and probably from growing up with Fast and Furious, I hate to quote the cliche, but when there's so much going on, everything else in the world is quiet. And yeah, I can get that on short circuits, but road racing specifically, with what could be an outcome, it just amplifies it to a next level. When everything is on the line, nothing else matters, and it's so peaceful whilst also being incredibly exciting.
Yeah, why do I race bikes or road race specifically is a really good question. I mean, probably one of them that's asked pretty frequently. So I think the generic answer is because I love it. I really enjoy doing it, but there's maybe a little bit more to it than that. We joke about it being throttle therapy, but honestly, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Racing bikes certainly gives me something that nothing else really does. It's such a great mix of, the physical challenge and the amount of focus it takes, the preparation, and in general, the freedom that I certainly feel with road racing anyway. The moment my helmet goes on, everything kind of quietens down, all the noise and any sort of stress that's maybe been happening, or, any sort of outside distraction just kind of disappear, because you want to be completely present and need to be completely present on the bike, and, there's no room for kind of overthinking or carrying anything extra into that. So it's that kind of thing where, it demands everything from you mentally and physically, and, that's a big part of the challenge, and it's, I suppose, one of the things that, I love about it, and it's not just adrenaline for me. And don't get me wrong, it's the most fun thing I think anyone would ever do. But, it just kind of gives that little bit of clarity. It's like a breath of fresh air almost. I come away from it feeling a bit lighter and like more focused, and I just feel, genuinely more myself within the race setting than I do kind of anywhere else or doing anything else. And I suppose a big part of that as well, you being able to meet so many new people and growing up through the bikes, and certainly coming into the road race paddock as well. We've met some really, really great people that we get on with so well. So there's that community there too, which, plays a big part in making it enjoyable. So yeah, I suppose there's just so many reasons why I do it. I mean, I think it's hard, like when you're reflecting on it, kind of to pinpoint exactly why. But I've just got such a love and passion for the sport, and I certainly don't really want to be doing anything else, or couldn't see myself really doing anything else. I enjoy it so much, and I love it, and I'll do it as long as I'm able to. So yeah, I suppose that's maybe a little bit deep there, but yeah, there's probably a good few reasons why I do it, and I'm sure there's lots of people that have got different reasons, or maybe the same ones, but yeah, like I say, it's kind of hard to pinpoint one specific reason. There's a few, and it's just just for the love of it. I mean, in general, just absolutely love it.
Psychology of road racing, why do we do it? It's a really, really kind of technical and tough question to kind of answer. As of last weekend, I've just done my first ever proper road race in Ireland at the Cookstown 100. So previously I've done the Southern 100, Oliver's Mount, and little bits and pieces like that. So that's really my introduction to road racing. But the difference between like an Oliver's Mount, which is obviously a closed road, a public road, but not used so much, so to compare to what I've just done this weekend, is night and day. The road surfaces, the conditions, the bumps, the jumps, the speed and everything else like that is just a different ballgame. Why do I do it? If you'd have seen me on Saturday before I went out for the first race, I was behind the awning, helmet off, crouched down, retching, feeling sick, nerves, everything else like that. I think if you'd have asked me, do I want to go home, I'd have said 100% get me on that boat again. I want to disappear. But the reason why I do it is how I felt after it. So Saturday's race came, Saturday's race went, absolutely loved it. One of the best things I've ever done on a bike. And to get back to the awning, to actually have a breather, stop, take your helmet off, and then see people that are around you that are smiling and congratulating you and everything else like that. The adrenaline is the biggest rush. If you could bottle that, you would be an absolute millionaire. But yeah, that's why I go road racing, is to chase that kind of feeling. I know the risks. I'm not doing it, because I want to waste my life. I keep saying this to people. I'm not looking to waste my life. I'm looking to live my life. I want stories to tell the grandkids. I want stories to tell my kids. And, I know people say it's dangerous and bits and pieces like that, but I'd rather my kids grow up seeing that their dad went and got his goal than, spoke about other people doing it. It's mad just seeing the pictures and stuff I've been tagged in over the last few days on Facebook. When you're 150, 160 mile an hour tucked in, from the outside looking in, it looks absolutely mental. But when you're on the bike, it seems really kind of calm and you know what you're doing, you're in control. So yeah, really good question. Psychology of going road racing. Why do I do it? It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. It's just a feeling, the buzz. And yeah, that's why I love it.
Thank you so much to Aaron, Ashley and Blake there. So back to the discussion with Stephen Walsh.
So I've been asking people, Stephen, what it is about road racing, why they do it, because I think for anyone who doesn't, it is a little bit hard to understand why, first of all, you'd put yourself through the physical side of it, but also the mental side of it, everything that goes with it, not just the actual racing on the track, but, all the hurdles that people seem to have to overcome and the finance side and everything. And so if I were to ask you, possibly not with your psychologist head on, first of all, why you do it, would you be able to answer?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, since I was a very small boy, I remember the first time I was at Scaries, I was a very small kid. And it just captured my imagination. And I remember I had a small little bicycle going round and round and round the house, pretending I was road racing. And it's kind of all I ever wanted to do for as long as I remember. I love the sight of it, the sound of it, the smell of it, just everything about it. And that really, intense excitement I had as a small kid when I saw it never left me. I love watching it. I love talking about it. It fills up my head. I just love absolutely everything about it. Like you say, the money side is a bit of a hurdle, but lucky enough, I've loads of people who give me a hand with various different things, and that helps. But it's a bit like anything that anybody really wants to do. You'll find a way around the money some way or another. And yeah, I just love everything about it, especially the roads. I quite like the short circuits too. And I'm trying to do the British Historic Series this year because I think it'll make a better rider of me and make me a bit sharper maybe. But it's the road racing I especially love. And I love it because it's just perfect. It fills up your mind, your senses. It kind of really calms me. Funny, one of my very favourite things, that no man's land in the Isle of Man. I think that bit of time in no man's land is probably amongst the best times I've ever had. Because before you get up there, you're kind of, is everything going to go all right? Is the bike going to break? Is it going to be damp? Are we going to get going? Is there going to be delays? And you're worried about everything. You still have time. Flip, if I really wanted to, I might be able to pull out. Then you're up in no man's land and the die is cast and you're waiting to go, and it's just perfect. I just love it.
It's interesting. I was talking to Charlie Hopkins a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things he said is, when you get up to that point, when you're in no man's land, nobody can reach you. So you've got no phone, you've got no demands on you whatsoever. It's actually just you, the machine, and whatever you're about to do. And I suppose, given the way we live nowadays, there is something to be said for that.
Yeah, it's so calm. It's so calm. And it just gets you into that. A thing that I'm really interested in is that feeling of flow. That feeling when everything is just right. I mean, I don't play golf. I've never played golf, but I've heard them. That clicking sound when they hit the ball right. That's kind of what it feels like. And it's just, for me anyway, one of the reasons that I really like the bikes is they're a funny mix of really exciting and really relaxing. And I can think of nothing else that makes me feel just as kind of calm and settled and relaxed as it. And it's great.
That's, I suppose, again, hard for somebody. So, I am, by my own admission, the most risk-averse person, I think, on the planet. So the thought of doing something like that just fills me with absolute dread because I'm just thinking, well, this could happen, that could happen, da-da-da-da-da. But so many people describe that sort of meditative state that you get into where actually everything seems to slow down and you are hyper-aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and really, for me anyway, I think if I thought it was dangerous, I wouldn't do it. It doesn't feel it, it doesn't look it. It's kind of just perfect. And for me anyway, I like it because I love it because it's how will I put it? It just feels right. And I'm not even especially good at it. And I can only imagine what it'd feel like if you were, but it's just that feeling of the way things should be. I love it.
Okay, so from your day job point of view then, just tell us how you got into psychology.
I got there kind of late. I was working in a factory for years and they made me redundant. And that gave me the money to go studying. So I went and I did an undergrad degree in psychology. I was working for a brain injury service provider at the time. And I ended up, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship for a PhD, and that's how I went. But I came to it late. I was in my 30s before I started studying. And then I'm very interested, I always have been, when I was very small, I was interested in people's stories. And that's what got me into psychology, because I wanted to know what makes people tick, what are people. And one of the reasons that brain injury was so interesting to me is there's a sense in which injuries disrupt who people are. And in that disrupting of who people are, it kind of lays bare all the processes that make them who they are. And rehabilitation, to my mind anyway, it's about helping people to be who they understand themselves to be. And that journey back, it's quite like sport, actually. I think what we are is creatures who do things. And rehabilitation is about enabling people to do things. And there's a sense, to my mind anyway, in which performance is kind of the same. It's about people trying to do the things they want to do as best they can.
I suppose when it comes to performance, there's also something about expectations, isn't it? Whether it's expectations you have of yourself or expectations other people have around you, and sort of goal setting. And I don't know, do you have to be that sort of person, do you think, particularly when it comes to road racing, that you're constantly goal setting? Because from the people that I've spoken to, many of them have a goal. So, for example, MGP, that's my goal. And then it moves on. Then there's something else. Then there's something else. And it's like, it seems to be a constant evolving process.
Yeah, it does. And a thing that I love about all sports, including ours, is it gives us the capacity, it gives us the chance to try. And say, for somebody like me now, my goals would be very different from the people at the sharp end. Say the Manx Grand Prix, my goal is to qualify and get around. But no matter what level you're at, just trying to get that little thing that's a tiny bit ahead of where you're at. That's what I love. It's why football annoys me. You know, you see all millionaires running around not trying. There's no satisfaction in that. I'd rather watch kids play football who are trying. And the thing is, the nature of our sport, you'd almost never see a person who's not trying. Everyone's trying their hardest. It's nearly like, it's like refined and pure sport, because everyone from first to last, everyone's trying to go as fast as they humanly can. They're trying to, and they're trying to build the bikes as best they can, everything. And it's that trying part of it that I love.
And how much of this sport is a mental process, would you say? Is it about having your own sort of psychology sorted so you can perform as well as you can do?
I think so, yeah. And everyone is so different that different things work for different people. I mean, some people go best when they're chewing the handlebars. That wouldn't be me now. I go best when I'm as relaxed as I can be. But that massive individual difference in what makes people work, it's awfully interesting to watch from the outside. You know, you see it, I'm sure you see it in the start line. You know, some people that love to talk to you before they go, other people don't want to see anyone for an hour before they go. Some people have habits and rituals, some don't. And that figuring out of what works for you and for other people, it's interesting to watch and just to see it unfolding around you.
And where would you say those sort of pre-race rituals come from, and why are some people sort of more attached to things like, you know, having a little superstitious ritual, for example?
There's a couple of sides to it. Did you ever hear that story about Barack Obama and the suits?
Well, I think I have, but just remind me.
You know the way he had, like, I think all his suits were the one colour. And the reason he said that they were all the one colour is he didn't have to think about it. And I think there's an element to that, to the pre-race rituals. I think that they're important to some people because just you don't have to think about it. You just get onto the bike from this side, and even there's Stephen, a guy gave me a hand at Cookstown last weekend, another Stephen, and he pushed the bike down to scrutiny from the right hand side, and it just looked wrong to me because I always push it from the left. So there's that just way of doing things that you do, and you don't have to think about them. I also think there's probably something superstitious in most of us, that, you know, if you've a way of doing things and it always works for you, why change it? And I know I'm very superstitious on a luck level. I really believe in luck. I think a lot of people in daily life believe in luck. So it probably, you know, we're backing ourselves a bit as well with our rituals, I imagine.
There's a danger though, isn't there, that if, God forbid, you forgot to do something and you suddenly remember that when you're sitting on the start line, the impact that must have on you must be quite significant.
Yeah, there is. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Like, you know, you were saying at the start, the mental side of things, like we can really put hurdles in our way. And there's no doubt that our minds really constrain us. You know, if we can just expand our thinking about things a little bit, it's amazing what we can do. I did a firewalk a couple of years ago. I always like to try things. And there was somebody organised a firewalk in town here, and I went to do it. But the guy got us to do this really good thing. He got us to, before we went, he got us to turn around as far as we could, point at the wall, and remember the point on the wall at which we'd pointed. Turned around and looked at him again. He said, now imagine in your mind's eye a point about 6 inches beyond where you've just pointed to. Turn around, do it again. And we all pointed the point 6 inches beyond where we pointed to. And it was a really good lesson because, like, we think we can do stuff, but if we just think a little bit beyond it, flip it, we can probably do it. And trying to get that to work for you, it's part of the fun of sport. See where you can go. Because I reckon most of us could probably be much better than we are at most things. Only we think, flip it, I wouldn't be able to do that.
It sounds simple, doesn't it? But I suppose you have to be open to that way of thinking, and not everybody is. I mean, some people would think that's a little bit of a a bit wacky almost, doesn't it? Thinking that the power that a single thought almost can have.
Yeah, sure, I think that myself. I often think to myself, what kind of an idiot are you? And then sometimes I go along, I really curse a lot to myself. When I'm inside my helmet, I curse a lot. Thank goodness nobody can hear what we're saying. But I really think like self-talk, and especially if you can curse at yourself in the right kind of way. I mean, it helps me. Physician, heal thyself, eh?
But it's just, this is a fascinating subject, Stephen. And I think from a psychology point of view, is there really, as you were saying, everybody in this sport is doing the same thing to the point of like trying to do their absolute best. So is there anything that somebody who perhaps feels that they are struggling performance wise, I don't know whether they struggle with nerves, they just have those thoughts where they think, I'm not actually able for this almost. What can people do in that position to try and put themselves in the best point of mind?
Breathing is the first thing. So you can lower your heart rate through your breath. Very easy, just breathe out longer than you breathe in. I suppose you can think of it in terms of physical, mental and verbal. So physical, you can lower your heart rate. You can do things to relax. You can move your arms. You can move your neck. There's a lot you can do. The rugby players are a good example. You see the way when the rugby players are taking their kick, you can see them looking at it going over before it goes over. The international guys, they wouldn't be doing that if it didn't work. It works. Visualization works. You'll hear of lots of competitors racing, rallying, visualizing their way around a circuit, remembering it. I know some people move their hands and feet on their way around, and verbal self-talk is a powerful thing. The difference between telling yourself you can do something and you can't do something, it plays out in life. If you tell yourself you can't do something, you probably won't. Whereas if you tell yourself you can, you probably will. And one of the lessons from bike racing, again, even though I'm not especially good at it, it has taught me that I can do things that I never thought I'd be able to. And then that carries out into all sorts of ways. Like on the Isle of Man, I've always wanted to do the Isle of Man. And where for some people, they're trying to hit milestones in terms of lap records. I just wanted to get around it. And just qualifying and getting around it, that makes you think, well, flip, if I can do that, there's so many other things that I can do. And it's the beauty of sport, isn't it? I
suppose it is, yeah. And again, it's that goal setting. I suppose if you are so focused on something that everything else kind of will work towards that happening, because, that is just your main focus. And so you kind of, you're working towards it.
Yeah, and focus and performance are tied up too. If you think about if you're on a bike, say you're doing a lap of anywhere you want to think of, like you've got yourself to focus on, you've got the bike to focus on, you've got the people around you to focus on. But even if you realize that before you get onto the bike, then you can decide, you can make a rough plan in your head. At what part of the circuit am I going to think about the bike? At what part am I going to think about my competitors? At what part am I going to think about myself? Like, you don't want to be thinking about yourself as you're sliding into a corner with somebody slipping up your inside. You want to be thinking about your competitors there. Do you know what I mean? Whereas maybe, if there's a long straight at the back and your legs are feeling a bit cramped because it's your third race of the day, you can stretch them out there. So I think my mind isn't as tidy as I'd like it to be. But there's something about tidying your mind. If you think about it, in racing, attention is probably our most precious resource. And many people don't think about how they're going to spend that resource before they start racing. Now, nothing ever goes perfectly to plan, but I think in sport generally and in our sport, if you plan out how you're going to use your attentional resources before you use them, you're probably going to set yourself up to do a little bit better.
There are other things that come into play though, aren't there? When you think about a meeting over here, so Manx Grand Prix as an example, It's a long couple of weeks. You're exhausted, you're probably not sleeping brilliantly, your food intake might be a little bit all over the place. How much of an influence does that sort of thing have?
Do you know, I think it depends how you think of yourself. So again, I think that's a function of mind. Imagine if you are somewhere with a family member versus you being somewhere on your own, how you'll engage with the situation. It's going to be different. So I would feel less tired when I have my kids with me, say, than I would when I'm somewhere on my own. It's 10 o'clock at night, they're all cranky, and you have to be the grown-up in the room. So you will be. Whereas if you hadn't got them with you, you'd probably be cranky yourself. So there's an element of that in our prep for things like the Manx Grand Prix where, you may have, sure, we know well, you've storms in the middle of the night, things blowing all over the place, a fireman asking you, do you want to leave your bike or do you want to go to the community centre? How you look back on it the next day, and, can you frame it as something that's funny or is it something that's serious? I suppose it depends whether your bikes get blown over or not, but it's all about appraisals. And I think the appraisals we make of things are a function of how we understand ourselves in context. Look at the rugby players again. Imagine your rugby players, they're on a field, there's a 20-stone fella jumping at them and then sitting on them. I mean, imagine that happened to you on the street. You're going to think of it differently. Now, in a much less intense way, something similar has happened to us with the bikes. I mean, there's nobody 20 stone sitting on us, hopefully. But do you know what I mean?
If you are a fundamentally glass half empty kind of person, Stephen, can you change that outlook?
And there's times when being fundamentally glass half empty, I think, works in your favour. I was talking to Eddie Gilmore last weekend. He loves two-strokes. I couldn't ride a two-stroke because I'm too much of an optimist. It'd tighten up and start to go a bit quicker. And I think, brilliant, this thing is about to take off. Whereas really you want to be a bit of a pessimist in that situation, get the clutch in. So like, if I was a two-stroke rider, there'd be holes in hedges with my name on them all over the place. So I think, horses for courses, two-strokes are the place for pessimists.
But again, it's just that reframe. I'm just really fascinated by that whole sort of reframing. And, we're talking obviously about road racing, but, this applies to life generally, doesn't it? Life throws whatever at you. And I guess how you choose to roll with it will impact how much it affects you in some ways.
Yeah. And I think, and bike racers especially, I think even like club racers like myself, I think there's a degree to which what we do makes us who we are in a way that's probably not true for people who play, I don't know, table tennis or something. Whereas like most of us in this, I think, see ourselves as bike people. And then that makes us, I don't know, there's a kind of a resilience tied up with it. Short circuit people are great. Short circuit racers always have the whiff of like Valentino Rossi about them. Do you know what I mean? They're just that little bit cooler and more polished than the rest of us. Whereas the road racers, they're just us, except a way better version of it.
I love that description. And yeah, I think that sort of sums it up in some ways. The road racing community is quite a distinct one. And there's a lot of camaraderie in the road racing paddock and a genuine desire, I think, on the part of many people to see others do well as themselves.
Yeah. And the amount of help you get. I'm really lucky. I've loads of people help me. But it's because people love road racing and they'll go right out of their way to get an engine in, get an engine out, get you parts, give you something to get you over the line if you just need something. And I can't think of any other sport that generates that level of helpfulness in fellow competitors, people just passing through. It's just great. And even there was a guy over from the Isle of Man at the weekend. I was chatting with Cookstown, friend of Barry Woods, and I'd never met him before. But just you can instantly fall onto the same page as somebody if they like road racing in a way that I'm not sure you could with any other sport.
And I think you see it from the top down, don't you? So, I mean, I remember like last year at the MGP, Michael Dunlop, for example, helping out other people in the paddock. And I think that is a really strong symbol of what the road racing mindset is all about.
Yeah, I think so. And no group of people is perfect, but I do think road racers are just a little bit more perfect than the rest of the world.
I'm just fascinated from your point of view, obviously, with your day job and looking at brain rehabilitation. I mean, I'm hoping you've probably seen some great stories of people overcoming what must be quite severe injury and actually getting their lives back.
Yeah. And I actually, I was working a little bit, we're putting in a bid for some research funding at the moment. And I think there are things that we can learn from bike racing rehabilitation that we could transfer to other contexts. Because if you look at bike racers, they tend to fix quickly from injuries that are often quite severe from broken pelvises to, I mean, you name it. And people get up and going and back on bikes pretty quickly in a way that people in other fields of life don't. And why is that? I think it's got something to do with the desire to get in the bike, and there's a resilience built in to many people racing, I think. But the processes that go on that enable people to do these things, there's transferable knowledge there that we should and can get at, I think.
And, the other thing that's fascinating, I think, is when people are unfortunately involved in any sort of incident, the number of times you hear that somebody's been really badly hurt, but they're getting up going, no, I'm fine. So we know that adrenaline obviously plays a massive part in that, but there is just a real reluctance, I think, on the part of people when they've put so much into getting there to go, no, I'm not out yet.
Yeah. And it's not brilliant to watch. And that goes back to I think the trying thing that makes the sport what it is. It requires a level of effort and investment of every resource, like from emotional regulation to your financial situation to everything. And why is it? What is it about the people involved in the sport that makes them this way? And for my part, I don't think that the answer is generally within the people. I think it's within the wider context. I don't know why I'm falling into rugby a lot, but I'm going to fall into it again.
Are you a rugby fan?
No, not really. But if you look at the All Blacks, I was reading about them recently. They win something like 80% of their games. Is that because babies in New Zealand are born differently than everybody else? I don't think so. And if we look at our own sport, you're speaking about Michael Dunlop a minute ago, there's clusters of people who are exceptionally good at this sport. Why is that? I think it's because of the context that they come from. And I think if we could unpick what was going on in those contexts, we could learn an awful lot that would be good for us in a whole variety of other contexts.
Yeah, it's almost like if you could bottle those qualities and sort of be able to give them out to other people in any given sort of situation, it would actually make them more resilient, more able to follow their goals and actually probably live life to the full. Because that's a sense that you get, isn't it? That people who do this sport, they have to sacrifice a lot. You know, there's a lot that goes along the way and a lot of the struggles and whatever. But fundamentally, they are living their joy.
That's the thing. Unless their engine is just blown up, you'll very rarely meet somebody grouchy in a road race paddock, will you?
No, that's true. It's true. The other side, though, I mean, it's sort of just mentioning before about people who are involved in incidents, and if you have got a long recovery from a psychological point of view, how you manage that, because that must be incredibly frustrating when you see races that you should have been in and whatever. It's how you, I don't know, sort of get to your optimum level to be able to recover properly and not sort of lose yourself in what could be like a very depressing time.
Oh, yes, it so can. Sometimes when people can't get back on the bike, they'll stay involved in a really useful way with the sport. And that's really important, I think, because there's so much of our sport happens off the bike as well as on it, that there's room for everybody to stay involved. And I think it's not perfect, and it's far from easy more often than not. And it's not easy to bounce back from injuries in any walk of life. So, I mean, I don't want to try and paint it as too rosy, because it's not. But I think it comes back often to the sense of community that in the biking world, people tend to look after each other. And I think within the biking community, there's a level of support between people that's not there in the rest of the world more often than not.
And I guess it's inspirational stories, isn't there? If you've seen somebody else go through a long recovery, but actually ultimately back out doing what they love doing, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope, which must be so important.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there's so many people you can look to in this sport who you think, goodness, when I grow up, I want to be like them. And, you know, you see some people in their 70s and they're still racing, and it keeps them young. It's fantastic. It's just brilliant. And I think there's something about what it does is it allows people be who they really want to be. And not many people get that chance outside of these kind of sports.
Stephen, do you think that when it comes to a typical road racer, embodying all those sort of qualities that you've talked about, how much of it is nature and how much of it is nurture? So how much is the environment that they've grown up playing an impact, and how much is it they were just born to do this?
I think it's both. I think it's a mixture of both. But I think we underrate the importance of the environment. So I do. I think we tend to look at individuals and say, goodness, that's a great individual. And we tend to be blind to the environment around them. And I'm not for a second taking away from the individual differences that make people exceptionally good. But I think that we can understand it better if we look to their context as well.
So for you, did you grow up in a bike environment? Is that where it came from for you?
Yeah. Well, I got my first bike when I was 5. My dad was very interested in bikes, so I got my first bike when I was 5, And then I went all the way up through schoolboy trials and that. And then I did my first short circuit when I was 17 or 18. But then I had, when my parents were away on holidays when I was quite young, I promised them I wouldn't go racing, and I rode the bike over to the track during the night, and I put myself in hospital off it. They had to come back from holidays and it was war, so that was the end of biking for a while. And then when I was about, I got going again. It took me a long time to get the money together again, but because I'd wrecked everything. And then about 10 years later, I got going again, but I wrote that off too, and that was the end of it for another while. And then it took me another 10 years to get the money again.
I am honestly just cringing at how much trouble you must have been in.
It was absolute war.
What were you thinking? Oh, that's it though. This is the other thing, isn't it? I think, people can grow up in families where, maybe there's an association with bikes, but actually I really don't want my child to do this. And if you have got that mindset, there is nobody that's going to say to you, don't do that. And you'll go, all right, then. It's just.
Well, I think, for me, I was always a bit contrarian anyway. And I know I really annoyed them when they had to come back from their holidays that time. And they really got a set on it. And the more of a set they had, the more I really wanted to do it again.
You see, this is why I'm not a road racer. I'm not only risk averse, but I always follow the rules as well. That's it. I am just a rule following, risk averse person who would never think about going out on a bike when I've been told not to. What do you think is the most useful thing that we can take away about sort of personal performance, I suppose, for anybody who's, looking ahead, but particularly think about MGP newcomers and newcomers pre-TT and the Southern and whatever. What's the most useful thing do you think they could do to get into the right frame of mind?
I think to realise that attention is the most important resource in racing and figure out how they're going to use it to their best advantage, both in learning and using it. Now, that said, I'm not a very good racer. I'd like to think I'm a better psychologist than racer, and it's kind of unfortunate for me because I'd much rather be a better racer, But anyway, so that's because there's very little I can tell anyone about racing because I love it, but I'm not that awful good at it. But with the psychologist hat on, that's what I'd say. Attention is your most important resource. Figure out how you're going to use it to your best advantage.
And if you looked at a racer who is perhaps just starting out as compared to somebody who is at the top of their game, for example, do you think there'd be quite a few similarities between them, psychology-wise?
Do you know, I've noticed the really fast guys, they have a visual awareness that the rest of us mere mortals aren't quite as strong on. And I think you can train it. I'm convinced, I have this notion, I've yet to test it. There's something in juggling. You see Max Verstappen, he juggles before he goes racing. And if you think about juggling is doing something. It's doing with your hand-eye coordination. It's involving both sides of I can't think of any other activity that both sides of your brain are firing at the same time. And I think there's a pal of mine, he's into the rallying, and I'm trying to get him to juggling to see will it make him a bit faster. I have a notion there's something in juggling. Now, I could be completely wrong, might be the most barking mad idea, but juggling, I think there's something in it.
I hope loads of people are listening to this and we're going to see everybody juggling in the paddock this year because that would just be brilliant. Can you juggle?
I can, yeah.
Can you?
What I'm trying to do, now this is kind of sad, but I'll share it with you anyway. I had a notion over this winter, so I decided I'd try myself first. So what I'm trying to do is I juggle and I try and switch focus as I'm juggling. And as I switch focus, I also try and watch the telly at a 90-degree angle. What put this into my head at the start, I broke down the second year I did the Manx, I broke down at Ballath. And you know how far back the Marshal's post is from the bridge? One of the fast guys who I didn't personally know at all said to me in the pits later on that evening, did I see you parked up at Ballath? I said, how in the name of God did he even see me sitting amongst all the Marshals there? So that was where I got the idea that there's something about peripheral vision in these fast guys that they're taking in more than the rest of us. And I think doing hand-eye stuff like juggling, my peripheral vision will never be as good as the fast guys, but it can definitely be better than what it is now. And then shortly after I encountered him, I encountered somebody else who said to me, again, another fast person, did you see the photographer in the inside of the gooseneck? I was like, no, I was looking up the mountain. But I've come across it through speaking to various people who are a lot quicker than I am, and I think there's something in it. And then I saw Max Verstappen and his juggling before he goes out in the Formula One. Now, there's something of the pre-race ritual in that, but those guys don't do anything unless there's a performance advantage in it. So I'm convinced there's a performance advantage to be gained in juggling that involves peripheral vision.
I am going to go and learn how to juggle. Not because I'm ever going to obviously race a bike, but there is something about being hyper aware. And actually, it's really interesting because you speak to some people who say, they could pick out somebody in a yellow shirt in the hedge and whatever. I mean, I think to me, that would be a blur going past in a car at 30 miles an hour. So there is something about training your brain. And, maybe some people have got that naturally, but if you can do something to try and enhance that skill, I love it. You should name this. Yeah. This is the title of your book, isn't it? There's something in juggling and rugby.
Well, maybe we'll get a set of tires out of it. Yeah.
If there's one thing then that you think people could take away from this conversation, from what you have studied so far and with the people that you've been working with, what would you say?
I think there's something about finding what works for you, and that's different for everybody. One of my favorite racers, I heard somebody ask him about lap times, and he said, "I've no idea. I was just going as fast as I could," and that really works for him. And then I know somebody else who they know every lap time they've done everywhere across the history of time, and that works for them. So I think it's just about trying to think about yourself in a way that illuminates for yourself what works for you and what doesn't.
That's really simple, but actually makes so much sense. And I think not just for road races, isn't it? If we all understood maybe how we tick, then we'd all perform better probably in most areas of our lives.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Well, I am off to juggle, Stephen. Thank you so much. And watching the telly at 90-degree angle, have I got to move my head a little bit? I don't know. I'll let you know how it goes. Where Brilliant. Can people follow you and your progress online, Stephen?
I'm not sure really. Facebook, I suppose. Yeah.
And do you think you'll be back on the island at some point?
I really hope so, yeah. Yeah, I really hope so. I have a notion I'd like to get something more modern to go back, but we'll see. You have to try and sort out money.
Well, we wish you all the very best with that. And remember your juggling balls.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thank you very much indeed.
Stephen Walsh, honestly, genuinely, one of the most fascinating people I think I've spoken to. I am practicing the juggling, I'll be honest. It's not going very well so far. I've managed it with one ball, so I'm hopeful that my career as a motorcycle racer is on the horizon. If you would like to follow Stephen's progress, as usual, all his details are on the podcast page, so do give him a follow. And if you would like to be involved with the podcast, the details of how to do that are coming up. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much indeed for listening to this episode of Startline. Do take some time to find the riders on social media. Your support is very much appreciated. And if you'd like to get in touch with me and be part of the podcast in the future, you can email Beth at startline.im. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.